January the 7th, 2023, we'd like to open the Town of Littleton Conservation Commission. Welcome, everyone, and would like to start with the approval of the minutes from January 17th, which we actually had a full house, and so we're very happy to have all the commissioners there for that. Do we have any comments or corrections, omissions to the minutes from the 17th of January?
We got Kyle's comments earlier, so those have been made.
Yeah, minor edits. There's nothing of substance.
Okay. If that is the case, do we have someone that would like to make a motion to approve January 17th, 2023?
Sure. Make a motion that we approve the Conservation Commission meeting minutes from January 17, 2023.
Okay. Thank you, Kyle. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you. And Chase tonight, because Andrew's not here, is going to do roll call for us. Thank you, Chase.
Roll call votes. Kyle.
Maxwell, aye.
Brian.
Brian Crowley, aye.
Michael.
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl.
Carl Malberg, aye.
Myself, Chase Gerbig, aye. And Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to administrative discussions. Does anyone, we've got a full list tonight as well as a meeting. Does anyone have any updates that they would like to add to this list? Okay, if not, let's go ahead and begin for request for certificate of compliance 27 Maplehurst Mass DEP 204-0952. Amy?
Yep. So Kyle has put in a request for certificate of compliance, understanding that the grass isn't growing yet. But I did know there are a couple exceptions from what was approved. So I just wanted to give the commission an opportunity to react to those and see if anything needs to be done.
Okay, I see Melissa's here with us. Any updates on the property?
No, so sorry, I'm trying to figure out this. You can hear me, I'm sure. I don't think you can see me either.
No,
but
that's
so
okay.
I had walked
just we can see now.
hello.
Just for the record, just state your name and your address, okay? Thank you.
Hi, Kyle Mann, 13 Wind Cove Road, here to request certificate of compliance for 27 Maplehurst. I had walked the site, I think it was beginning of last week or the end of the week before, and nothing's changed at the site since then. The differences that we have, is that Amy's screen that brought that up? Okay.
Yeah, I'm having a problem here.
So the difference, instead of a deck, I installed the patio, and I substituted some trench drainage along the side of the driveway and did it around the back side of the wall because the majority of the water was going that way, and the drain next to the driveway really wasn't gonna do anything. And we kind of agreed on that when we walked the site last week, but those were the only two changes to the plan.
Are there any other commissioners that have any questions for Kyle or for this certificate of compliance?
No, I think the property looks great compared to before this process started.
Okay.
One question about the deck to patio. Is that within the 100-foot buffer?
Yeah, basically the entire site is within the 100-foot buffer, but the patio is out of the 50-foot buffer.
Okay. Did you run that change through Amy before you made it?
Just as like a verbal, I mentioned it, and then she had asked me to put it on a plan, which I did not get to her, but I do have the as-built here.
Verbal as in verbal before you did it, or verbal as in after you did it?
After the fact.
After the fact.
Okay. So this is, I don't actually have a problem with this, but I want to make it like abundantly clear that we approve these plans, and our expectation is the plans that we approved are the ones that are installed. And Amy's got some latitude to make some changes like this. I don't think this would have been an issue, but the way this should go, and Kyle, given that you do some other projects, I might not harass other people about this, but that you need to understand that those changes need to be run through Amy before they're implemented. We strictly speaking, could make you take that out. And
Okay.
I don't think anybody's intent on doing, but you need to understand that this is the way it's supposed to work, and we will hold you to that standard if there's a change that has a substantial impact on the resource area that's different than what was done before.
Okay. Yes. Understood. Absolutely. Yeah. And I should have, I was thinking that it was the same size. And then after the fact, when Amy and I spoke, she, made it clear that it was not as underneath the deck would be stone and this is impervious. So, yeah, understood. Absolutely. And in the future, I'll make sure to run it by everybody. So.
And I will also add, as Kyle kind of alluded, Kyle Mann did a fairly amazing job cleaning up trash both at the end of Maplehurst as well as in the backside of this property.
Yeah, so Amy, to follow up on that, I know Kyle Mann had mentioned he spoke to a few of the property owners, or they spoke at him about his cleanup work at the end, and basically said, "Hey, that was our dumping area, and just because he cleaned it up, we're going to keep doing that. That's going to be back next year." He blatantly said it to his face. Is there something that we can do? I know you'll put like no snow piles and stuff, signs like that. Is there a simple, quick no dumping sign that we can put right at the end of the road, or somebody or approach the town maybe, or knowing that this has the potential to be an issue again?
Yeah, I did speak separately, both with Steve Yonley and Steve Witten, about that there's just kind of in general an issue down there, and it might be worth trying to consider a fix. You can see near wetland flag 1, there's a head wall right there, but the plowing also just goes right into it. So yeah, I will talk to Highway about it if they have a sign they can put up there, which may or may not do a bit of good, but I think it's certainly worth, now that it's all nice and cleaned up, is try.
Well, I think that municipal signs are easy to come by, no dumping, please take notice, at least to have a good start for a visual.
No, that's what I was hoping.
Okay.
It's just a little
Great.
disconcerting that the neighbors are already saying it. Great.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. So with that said, do we have a motion for this certificate of compliance for 27 Maplehurst?
It's actually not ready to be voted yet because we need to wait for the grass to grow.
Okay.
But I hear it was worth bringing it up now in case
Sure.
the commission did want something about the changes. So,
Okay. All right. So we will see you. So probably not February 21. Our next is March 7. Would you like to?
it doesn't even have to be continued because it's not a public hearing. So, I mean, this is probably not going to happen until I guess in May or June.
Yeah, probably
right.
end of April at the earliest, grass will be established. So
Kyle, why don't you just touch base with Amy when you think it's ready? Okay.
okay, great.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Next, request for an extension of 22 Taylor Street, Mass DEP 204-0880.
Yeah, so this is a permit that would have expired February 14th, and they put in a request last month for it. But I told them that because of the tolling period through COVID, they have an extra 462 days, which would push the expiration date till May of 2024. But they asked, since they already submitted me all the paperwork, and they actually did a very thorough job of that, if tonight you'd be willing to add 3 years onto what would be the COVID tolling period.
And so for the
I see no reason you can't, but it's up to you guys.
Yeah. And for the commission to recognize this is a fairly new filing, so it's not an old one that's already been continued numerous times. So I would be in support of
This would be the first continue, right? On this one?
correct. Yep. So this would be 1 COVID plus the 3. Thoughts on that?
Fine by me.
Okay. Amy, do you need a motion or just an acknowledgement?
Nope, I need a vote to extend it,
Okay. Yep. Do we have someone that would like to make that motion?
and that would be to May 21st, 2027.
May 21st, 2027. Okay. Anyone? Okay, I would make a motion to extend 225 Taylor Street to May 2021 2027. Is there a second?
I'll second that. It's been, motion's been made and seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Michael, Carl.
He's having some connection problems.
Sorry, Michael Livingston,
Yes.
aye.
Okay, Carl.
Carl Melberg, aye.
Okay, myself, Chase Garvey, aye. Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye. Vote carries. Thank you. All right, thank you. Next is continued request for an extension, Lake Mattawamkeag drawdown, Mass DEP 204-0872. Thoughts on that, Amy?
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking at my dates here. They had applied for the extension and was kind of just on hold to make sure that Natural Heritage was in agreement with the extension, and the letter did come in from Natural Heritage that they're fine with it. And so as far as I can see, you can add the 3-year extension if you so approve.
Thoughts on that, commissioners?
Objections.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we approve the request for extension for Lake Mattawamkeag drawdown, DP number 204-0872.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
Motion.
Question, that'd be 3 years from the COVID extension?
Yes,
So, yeah. So is that May 21st as well?
No.
I didn't write it down. But if you tell me a 3-year extension, I can do the math.
3-year extension.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
myself, Chase Garvey, aye. Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye. Good, vote carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Town Forest Boardwalk, 1 in Cloverdale, ADA Trail update. So I have been asked through the town administrator to read a outline that was submitted by an abutter to Cloverdale. The commissioners did receive the introductory letter and 2-page outlet, which I will read now. So, and this is the input from Roddy and Maureen, Adema 5 Old Farm Road in regards to ADA proposed project at Cloverdale. So I will be reading this as requested. And this is stated from the neighbors. We completely support ADA access to open space, nature, including the beach, playgrounds, ball fields, etc. And Littleton should, as a whole, work together towards this goal for the town properties. We would like to see community outreach on such proposals. In this case, maybe a posting at the trail kiosk asking for input on ADA access makes sense. You would be reaching the individuals that use the trails. We recently saw a posting in Acton on a trail kiosk communicating a meeting for a proposed dog park, welcoming all that might be interested. We are daily users of Cloverdale. We would like the commission to be aware of the observations on the use of Cloverdale over the past few years since the boardwalks were completed. New paragraph, parking lot observations. Number 1, a letter of support for the ADA project stated he thought that people pulled into the parking lot without getting out of their car because they determined the property did not look like it would be managed by individuals with disabilities. The truth is, people use the parking lot as a space to text, take a phone call, rest, take a lunch break, or make a air quotes business, air quotes transaction. The parking lot is a plus regarding the texting and phone calls, making the great roads safer to drive on. Nothing wrong with someone pulling over to rest or eat lunch. The air quotes business and of air quotes transactions are a police matter. Number 2, due to the townwide speed limit, 25 miles per hour, the safety concerns of exiting the parking lot is greatly decreased. There is no handicap parking. People have commented on it says glass. I don't know if it's supposed to be glass or grass. It says glass cover and a lock. Sorry, that was glass cover and a lock on the kiosk. We heard from another individual wishing to post a sign about a lost pet. Kiosk lacks a trail map. Kiosk location leads people to believe parcel 6A and 5A are private property. Next, under general observations, Cloverdale has become a property used mostly by dog owners. Currently, there are about 11 dogs and their owners that use the property a number of times a week, many daily. They are residents of Littleton, Westford, and Acton. Most drive to the property. Some enter on foot, Mannion across the street, Surrey Road, Old Farm Road, using my property as an access. We enter on foot via parcel 5A. The residents of 63 Great Road enter via 6A. They do not have a dog. Other visitors mainly visit once a year during the Littleton Tree Hunt. There has not been a story walk in a number of years. Only one individual showed up on April 23rd, 2022 during the townwide cleanup day. We pick up litter. Another regular visitor also picks up litter. Second page, number 7, the boardwalk was taken over by the swamp grass to the height of 4 or 5 feet twice. In 2022, volunteers cut back the grass over 2 weekends. People have removed plants, bushes from the property. The trail maintenance has been poor. We removed a small tree, many branches and debris off the trail, and asked the town to remove a large tree that had been on the trail for months. Unfinished Boy Scout project of 3 years, now finished. Birdhouses fallen and broken on property, one hanging off a tree for over a year, pieces not picked up. Birds not using the birdhouses, markers fallen from trees, should use paint as used in other trails. Parcel 5A is an eyesore with a pile of old wood pallets, old bench, and other items being stored on this cut parcel. This is not air quotes staging, end of air quotes, at best the storage. Materials, in quotes, water hose, end of quotes, left in path to main property from 5A from late spring until November. Mowing and cutting outside of the plan. We are in support of ADA access at Conservation Land and Trails. We love that Acton Arboretum offers for passive recreation and trail access for those with disabilities. This proposal at Cloverdale falls short of the Acton Arboretum offerings. We support Cloverdale incorporating ADA access. We think a full plan should be discussed. It should be all persons property/trail. The plan could utilize 6A with a picnic area, a wildflower garden, and ADA taught playground. Access to this trail should be considered. Many individuals want to get into nature, not just sit and look at it. It suggests, as suggested in this project. We would like the town/Conservation Commission to hold themselves to the same standards as any other entity doing work in town and establishing the following. There are 6 here. Timeline for the project, publish it. Outline for the step stages of the project, publish it. Work days and hours, try not to impact the current users of the property. Consideration of health and safety of individuals, dogs, and wildlife at the property when equipment is used and materials. Cleanup after workday. Construction management plan. If any parts of the plan changes, costs, locations, etc., the commission should discuss, ask for public input, and then approve. Our biggest concerns are not being able to use the property while this property is under construction, and when the project is complete, dogs being prohibited from the use of the property. That's the end of that submission. So now we're going to move on to the Town Forest Boardwalk. Amy, do you have an update on that?
Yeah, just to let you know that the town forest received just over $19,000 from CPC and $7,000 from Littleton Electric Light and Water Department grants to cover the cost for Boardwalk 1, which is fantastic. And Dana Gray will be building most of that. And on Cloverdale, the ADA grant did get submitted. That was for a little over $30,000 from the state, with a matching a little under $15,000 from the town. The majority of that being from highway labor to construct the trail.
Okay. Any of the commissioners have any questions or comments on those updates?
Quick question, Amy, on the timeline of the ADA grant. When do we have any idea when we might hear on that?
They usually have it out by June, mid-June. They say they definitely want to do it before July 1st. Because then they give you the fiscal year to do it, although this is a construction job. So I put in the grant that we would certainly attempt to do it in 1 year, but given permitting and all the rest of the planning, that it might take the 2.
I guess that's what I was thinking, that if we don't get it until the summer is well underway, by the time we're in a position to construct it, we could be rolling the dice with the weather.
Exactly, yeah. And, highways having staffing issues. So I was able to write in a little bit of real room, basically.
So if there's a town person that's interested in seeing either of these applications, where are they submitted? Or where can they be seen or accessed? If not, can we post them?
We can post them. They are under the projects thing on the conservation website, or somebody can contact me and I can send them a PDF of it.
Okay, so it's on the website.
Yeah, I really don't think the state would submit it, make them available.
Okay,
I think eventually they might, but it'd be faster to go through me.
okay. Any other questions on this? Okay, next is the SISMA grant opportunity, Cloverdale Invasive Species Management.
Yeah, so the Conservation Trust got a little over $1,400 for some porcelainberry and mile-a-minute control over sort of behind Bonsai West. But then SISMA came back and re-announced that they're actually reopening the grant because they have $2,900 left over. And I thought it might be an opportunity to get the potential Phragmites and invasive species mapping plan that you had approved, that land stewardship had a $1,500 proposal for when the vegetation starts growing. So if I can get that covered by SISMA, I thought it might be a worthy thing. And also probably see if we can get some volunteers out there to do more mapping. Land Stewardship Inc. agreed that if we want to go out with them and see basically the software they use, and we can see how user-friendly it is, because if we can get volunteers to use that and get our invasive species mapping into the system rather than just some hand-drawn maps that are stuck God knows where, and that would be a huge thing. So if that sounds reasonable to you, I was going to go ahead and it's due, I think, February 28th or something. I was going to see if I just submit something and see where it goes.
So commissioners, would you like Amy to submit that? And then I think if we're looking for volunteers also to look and help work on that mapping, to post that on our website, but also on that kiosk as well. It's my understanding with that question with the kiosk that I do believe they have to remain closed. I don't know if they can be opened or not. But in regards to this grant opportunity, what are the thoughts of the commissioners?
Worthwhile, in my opinion. We should
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you. Next is a forest cutting plan, Smith Property, SVT, Sudbury Valley Trustees.
I will just say, do you want to take a break and move on to other stuff and do this stuff at the end, or
Let's just do forest cutting and then we'll move on.
That's basically just a notification that Smith has submitted their forest cutting plan, which the Conservation Commission really has no say in other than approving the wetlands, which was done during the notice of intent period. And Natural Heritage has been through their cutting plan and said they are fine with the cutting plan.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay.
I'm sorry, Sarah. I know you're trying to move on, but can I ask one question real quick on this?
Yeah, for sure.
Do we have any input or ability to? There are different times of the year when they could do this forest cutting work, some much lower impact than others. Do we at least have some latitude to make sure that they're doing it in the least sort of impactful timing possible?
Not really. Theoretically, that is all built into the Forest Cutting Act.
Yeah, does Natural Heritage at least look at that then? I mean,
Natural Heritage did look at this one because there is some stuff mapped out there. So Natural Heritage basically said that they had approved the notice of intent when that came in, and they see this just as part of that, and they had no issues with it.
I think
they did comment on it as well.
Chase, you also have to remember that a lot of those foresters really want many a times frozen ground, dry ground, so it doesn't behoove them to do it when it's wet and nasty.
No, and of anyone doing it, SVT is probably the entity I would be least worried about. But
Yeah.
it was more for my edification. Do we have into?
Yeah, and I asked Laura from SVT, who's very good about notifying me about everything, to let me know when they think it's going to start, so we can at least, go out and put eyes on it.
Okay. All right. So it is 7:55. We're going to open the 7:45 continued request for certificates of compliance, Mass DEP 204-0867. So in previous discussion, K phase 1, fur lane includes 1 fur lane, 800 square feet, driveway widening. 3 fur lane is a fence that's moved, and 5 fur lane, we need to meet with the owner. Let's start with 1 fur lane. We had asked at the last meeting to have people go and familiarize themselves with the driveway and the widening of the driveway to do drive-bys. Do we have anything to show? I think you had a plan of that, Amy.
I do, which I forgot to pull back up again. So
Okay, that's right. I think most of the commissioners have seen the site. What would we like to do going forward?
I hate to interrupt. So I'm Todd, the homeowner. I was invited. I didn't know if I had a role or if I comment. I'm completely new to this and apologize in advance.
We're happy that you're here, and thank you for introducing yourself. So what we'll do is we'll ask the commissioners for any feedback, and then they'll address any questions to you, and you can also give us some of the history as well. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Again, apologies.
Yep. No, you're good. Yep. Commissioners? Todd, why don't you go ahead and take this opportunity to tell us a little bit of the history of the driveway and such.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Again, apologies for even having to talk to me at this. I'm new to this. So background, without rambling too much, is I have my older son, was born very early. He's a quadriplegic. He's nonverbal and he has epilepsy. So around 4 years ago, we moved from Chelmsford, and we had a house that was multiple layers, and we realized that carrying him up and down the stairs from a garage to the second floor wasn't possible. So my wife looked at towns. We liked Littleton because their special education program is premier. It's a big network. And so we decided to move to Durkee. We built a house that is handicap accessible. His bedroom's on the first floor. It's flat, only a certain amount of stairs. Littleton has come forth with, a great program, including a van transport that picks him up in his transportation device, which is kind of a stroller/wheelchair, and they come every day, and they have. So when we moved in, it'll be 4 years ago in May, we realized the current driveway, the drivers were having some challenges turning around in our driveway. Once they had substitute drivers, they were going off the road a little bit. And then it was amplified in the winter with the snow removal, where they just had to go forward and back. Other things that were occurring, he has a visiting nurse at that time, he doesn't now, and therapists that do still join the house, and just finding that driveway size being not ideal. Again, realizing that it was working, but it wasn't ideal. So what we did, I think it was May, 1 year in, we reached back out to the builder, Chris, and said, hey, can you expand our driveway? He said, sure, not knowing, again, ignorance, the protocol that was needed, the zones other than some certain areas that we knew, like that had that tarp. So again, complete ignorance on my part. Didn't know the protocol, didn't know any due diligence, and he did it. And so now I'm in this situation. So, whatever I can do to make this better, I appreciate it. Again, it's helpful for our family.
Good. Thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
So I'm not sure what the sort of administrative course we would want to take here would be, Sarah, but my opinion would be that if the Schulmans had come in and specifically requested this, given that explanation and justification for it, it's very approvable in my mind. So I have no interest in doing anything other than finding the right administrative way here to dot the I's and cross the T's and kind of move on. And Mr. Schulman, make sure, in the future, you understand where the wetlands bylaw impacts what you're doing. Things like this happen from time to time.
Yeah, Amy's been great working with me and educating, so it won't happen again. I'm sorry.
So what is Chris That's one of the developers, right, Amy?
Yes,
Yeah.
Chris Finner, I assume.
So shouldn't he have known when this thing was put in, it wasn't, or put in a year ago, Todd?
This was put in, it will be, the driveway was put in 3 years ago, maybe May or June. I got to get my dates. We moved in 4 years ago, May. So it's been in place for almost 3
Oh,
years.
the
Extension.
extension, yeah.
Again, just asked if he could do it. I didn't really understand, again, my fault, that there were certain things that needed to be checked off. Maybe he assumed I did it. I don't know. I can't speak for him.
I agree with Chase. We need to find a way of doing this. I am disappointed with the director developers have been in a lot of ways.
Amy, can you, with your experience, offer suggestions of how this might be amended?
I think Hancock already submitted the as-built, and they are the ones who did the calculations, and it's a total of 800 square feet. So we have all the information that they would have provided us in requesting a minor modification, which they've done for several houses before they were built. So your choice is anywhere from a minor modification, approve it tonight as basically a red line, up to require notice of intent. I do tend to think it's a fairly small issue that just barely hits the buffer zone. The driveway does mostly pitch back towards the road, which has the drainage in it, so it's not pitching more down towards the wetlands.
Right, and everything's fully vegetated as well. Commissioners, what would you like to do? You've got your options here.
My 2 cents, sir, is given the proximity to the buffer zone, right? We're right on the edge. I'd just assume handle it as a red line and move forward.
Yep.
I agree.
I support that too.
Okay. Can we have a motion for that?
I'll move that we issue a minor modification, also known as a red line change, to accommodate the driveway widening at 1 Fir Lane, which is Mass DP file number 2040867.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second,
Thank you, Carl.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
myself, Chase Gerbig, aye. Sarah?
Sarah Seward, aye. So that's unanimous. So Mr. Schulman, that has gone through as a red line. We appreciate you addressing us this evening.
Thank you all for my family. Appreciate it. And have a great night.
Right. Thank you.
And one other thing that actually closes out all of the K and Durkee certificates of compliance. The only thing is understanding is I haven't been able to actually walk the site with a woman at 5 Fir Lane, but that is another minor mod. So if you want to close out that certificate of compliance, I think it's ready to go, or we can wait. We just keep missing each other. She's doesn't always get back to me, and I haven't been able to actually nail her down. The guy in the middle at 3 Fir Lane did move the fence that he had to move.
Right. So can you just remind us for a second what the modification is for 5 Fir Lane?
5 Fir Lane was a deck in the lawn outside the 50-foot no disturb. So it's part of those minor project approvals.
Outside of the 50, though.
Outside the 50.
Okay.
And you've seen it from the road anyway, Amy?
I'm sorry?
You've seen the modifications from the public rights of way, so we're not missing anything.
No, I've walked them. I walked them, I don't know, whenever the certificate of compliance was first issued out, actually a couple times. And the property owners know I've been there. I just haven't been able to have an actual conversation with the owner.
Okay, but we're not missing any information because
No, there was, I think it was actually either the night before Halloween or Halloween. I was knocking on people's doors. They knew I was coming.
Okay. Commissioners, what would you like to do? Would you like to have this remain open or close out and issue the final certificate of compliance?
just soon close it out, sir.
Okay. So Amy, do you need,
A vote, please.
okay. So I'm going to make a motion that we finalize and complete the certificate of compliance for Mass DEP 204-0867, inclusive of 1 fur lane, 5 fur lane, and 3 fur lane.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
myself, Chase Gerbeck, aye. Sarah?
Sarah Seward, aye. Okay, there you go, Amy. Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
now going to open the 750 discussion for enforcement order 15-16-0 Thompson Ipswich Drive, known as U15-14-0 Gallagher/Foss Place. Who's here to discuss this? Mr. Gallagher, I see you're in the galley.
Sarah, before we go to the property owner, would it be okay if we had Amy give us a little context to this first?
Okay,
Yeah.
yep, we'll go back. Amy, do you want to bring the plan up from the last meeting?
You know, for some reason, I'm having a hard time sharing my screen. It's probably because I'm on 2 screens here. Sue Carter is also here, and they
Okay.
have the information.
Chase, do you want Sue to put her plan up?
That'd be fine. I just wanted.
I had photographs, but let me try one more time if I can move this. Come on, move over.
I have plans showing the trees that were cut, if that's helpful.
Is that working?
Yeah.
All right, so there's some basic photographs that were in the enforcement order of what happened. So Falls Road is a paper road that comes back off of Ipswich. So I just walked up and down Falls Road because I didn't want to get onto the private property and took some pictures. And I think probably some of the information Sue has would add a little bit more to this. Is that what you wanted to see?
Yep, I think so. And when did we, remind me when we issued this?
This is our last meeting, right?
January 10th.
Yeah, we voted on it at the 17th meeting, right?
Right, yeah, you
We're not-
ratified it on the 17th, and they had the information that they knew you guys wanted to see to at least get this started.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
So Sewer Mark, ball's in your court.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, my name is Mark Gallagher, and I own Seal Harbor Development in Acton, Massachusetts. First, I want to say we're embarrassed to be here this evening. We've been doing development and construction in the area. I'm a resident of Littleton for the past 40 years. Done a lot of projects, about 2,000 lots and homes. We have never had an enforcement order. This situation got ahead of us. We purchased a lot on Foss Lane. We have the property on Ipswich under agreement. In order to demolish the house, the old cottage that's there on Foss, we brought our land clear in, and we did a very poor job of managing his work while he was there. And the result is that we, on Foss, we did not violate the 50-foot buffer, but on Ipswich we did. And, since this is our first enforcement order, first time that we've ever violated without a order of conditions, we want to make very clear this evening that we're prepared to work with you to replenish the trees that were removed from inside the 50-foot buffer. And we've prepared some plans this evening for you that Sue is going to provide and explain what our goal is in developing the lot on Foss and building a new home, and then also on Ipswich. So before we begin, I just want to make it very clear, we're responsible. We're taking responsibility for it. We'll work with you to do what's necessary to make this right.
Sue, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay. I have two separate plans, one for the lot on Foss and one for the Ipswich. Which one do you want me to start with, or does it matter?
Either's fine.
Okay. If I can share the screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen here?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the lot on Foss, right up along the top here is Ipswich. Foss is partially built. There's a house here, so it's their driveway. There's an old falling down. It was a 2-bedroom, almost cottage here at the end. There's a garage, a gazebo. Oh no, that was the observatory. A gazebo, a studio, and a small stable. So my office got involved in this to do soil testing and to start to design a septic system plan. And this summer, Bill Murray from my office flagged the wetlands. So as you can see, the wetlands that affect this lot the most are this wetlands over on coming off of Ipswich with a 50-foot no disturb zone that extends across the end of the existing driveway. So green is the edge of wetlands, blue is the 50-foot, red is the 100-foot. There's also Tracy Place, which is another paper road on the opposite side. I guess I didn't get the north arrow in on this one, I apologize. We have more wetlands, a 50-foot buffer, and a 100-foot buffer. So on this site, what we did was we had our survey crew go out and locate all the tree stumps and the size and identify what the species was. So as you can see here by the old studio, we had some maples, oak, here's a cherry tree, pine trees, some more oaks in this area. From having been on that site when we did the soil testing, this area was very overgrown and had a lot of bittersweet, multiflora roses, some honeysuckle, and brambles in that area. So it was very difficult to get around that area. So you can see my surveyors labeled it as thick brush at the time. So this is the first one. So this lot is actually comprised of 3 smaller parcels. There's one here, one here, and one here. And this is known as One Foss Place. If you'd like, I can show you the other one, or do you want to focus in just on this one first?
I think we'd rather focus in on one first. My first question is on those flags that were done in the summer, were they verified?
No, at the time, we hadn't gotten that far. I was supposed to have gotten the septic system design this fall, and just we ran out of time. So they were not. Bill Murray did it. He did not do the DEP data sheets, but he did it based mostly on soils and the vegetation there.
Okay.
There was a previous plan done for repair for this house, which is the system you see outlined in gray here, done by Steve Sears back in 1990. So it's a little different from what he had done, which is not all that surprising given how overgrown everything is.
Okay, so I think it's helpful for the commission to recognize that this evening, we're not looking at future build outs. We're looking at containing, we're working through the enforcement order. And so if commissioners have questions on what has been done on the site and stabilization as well.
Okay, what I'm showing here is a proposed erosion control barrier, straw wattles. It has not been installed as of yet. We wanted to wait and get feedback from the commission. So the high point of the lot is in this location. There's a slight hill where the septic system is, and this slopes down towards the wetlands, and this slopes down towards the driveway, Foss, and then eventually towards Ipswich. So we are proposing to put erosion control barrier around the perimeter and limit of work. So that has occurred already, not a new limit of work.
And so for the commission, no one's living there presently, correct?
Correct. The house is abandoned and it's actually falling down.
And I'll also say, so am I correct, you have a demolition permits in for those structures on there?
Yes, Mr. Gallagher does have a demolition permit in for those.
Commissioner's question, and I think it's interesting to note that you've got your paper roads, but also that the shaded is fully hard-topped.
Right. This is an existing driveway that served this house. Right.
So the
So what
driveway,
I've done is-
the driveway had a lot of wood chippings on it when Amy and I were on the site on January 9th. Has that road been cleared? Or
I
cleaned?
didn't do any work since the enforcement order because
Okay,
I didn't.
thank you.
I didn't want to violate anybody or I violated any further than I have.
Right, okay. Sue, maybe you can talk about what's on site in terms of stockpiles for chips as well.
I would have to go back to my photos, and to be honest with you, I saw I'm just glancing at them right now. There's a large pile of wood chips up in this area. I'm just working. Right, there's a stacked logs in front of the old house. That is about it. That there's a large, so wood chips are here. There's a few logs stacked over in this area, and it appears that the rest of it, most of it has been removed. When I went out there, there was snow on the ground, so it was hard for me to see what the ground conditions were under it. It appeared that this area was a yard area, and then it was very overgrown, so I'm assuming this is just the stubble from cutting the brush and then the trees. But there was snow on the ground, so I don't know if there may have been some chips in with it. So the main pile sort of probably straddles the lot line between this Foss address and the Ipswich address, like in this area.
Okay. Commissioners, any question on Foss Place?
One quick question. So Sue, you're proposing Waddles, you said to the right is north, right? So to the northern part of the site there.
Right. Wrapping around the entire area. So basically along the property line, the edge of woods line, which is a few feet in front of the 50-foot no disturb, and then tying into the existing stone wall, which is the property line.
And then I would expect we'll see a filing before anything else occurs in the resource area.
Oh, in the resource area, without a doubt. And then we also are showing a line of erosion control down the side of Foss Street, so that if anything washes down the pavement, it will not wash towards the wetlands.
Okay, I just want to be really clear. So like that piece that, what'd you say, was studio in the northwestern portion of the property?
Right, the studio.
That'll need a order of conditions before it comes down, and so.
Okay.
I have no objection to this as a short-term resolution, but I think we'll probably have more to do once the filing comes in.
Okay. Yep. So let's go ahead and move over to the adjacent part. Yep. Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, what was the total amount of trees that were taken down?
On this Foss lot, it was a total of 13 trees in the buffer zone.
13 of varying DBH. What was the largest DBH?
Looks like the largest one was a 24-inch oak. And that was between the 50-foot no disturb and the 100-foot buffer. So the largest trees taken down were in this corner here.
Yeah. And if you had put in for paperwork for that, would that group of trees have been proposed to be removed?
They would have.
So how many of these trees were you proposing to have removed?
Everything outside the 50-foot buffer.
So everything that's shown as being have already been taken down.
Correct. There was, as Sue was described, there was a lot of invasive species in that rear, along that, there's a fence back there, along the fence line. And there were a lot of dead trees that we also removed.
And I guess, Carl, that's what I was getting at with respect to, at least my intention anyway, to consider that in a filing.
Yep.
Because honestly, there's a lot of value to dead trees and so on, not to invasive so much, but I don't think the applicant should take it as a foregone conclusion that just because they might request those trees to come down, they would have necessarily been approved.
No, and that's I was just trying to, I want to just get that cleared up in my own head, Chase. I agree with you that trees and diversity of trees have become very important in Littleton, because we're finding that we just, every year we're losing more and more trees. We actually don't have, we should be calculating how many we lose every year, but it's getting I just see it growing exponentially.
So Sue, obviously you'll submit this particular plan with your next submittals. So let's go ahead and thank you for that, Carl. Let's go ahead on to the adjacent property.
Okay. So for orientation, Ipswich Road is at the top of the plan. Foss Place, the driveway we just saw, is coming down perpendicular. This is the garage on the adjacent property. Once again, the green is the edge of wetlands as flagged by my office. 50-foot no disturb zone is in this area. 100-foot buffer is in red. And it's not showing as well. I've got a proposed erosion control along the limit of clearing. So we actually have two lines here, the limit of tree clearing and the proposed erosion control. So we are proposing to tie into the erosion control barrier up at Foss Place, wrapping around and tying into near the stone wall so that we encapsulate the entire area. So here is our 50-foot buffer, and within the 50-foot buffer, there were 8 trees in total, 7 maple and 1 oak. And you can see those 7 trees right in this location. In the 50 to 100-foot buffer zone, we had a total of 27 trees come down, 9 of which were oak, 7 maple, and 11 pine.
So as a point of reference, there's a paper lot called Woodridge. Is that noted on this plan over on the left side, on the west side?
I am not familiar with that, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
You mean another paper street?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's that.
I believe that would probably be this one, but I don't have the name on the plan, so I'm not sure there.
Okay. Going forward, can we reference that? Because I think it abuts. Okay.
I think it's Cox Place, Sarah. That's what I'm seeing on
Okay.
the GIS map.
Yeah, that's what I was going to have to go look at. Okay.
Yeah. Huh.
So there's a 40-inch pine noted pretty much in the middle of
Yep.
this lot. Is that existing, or did that
Yes.
tree come down?
That did not come down. There is a 40-inch pine here, and those are
Okay.
remaining. Ones that were cut and we were able to measure the stump are these dots. And granted, typically we would note the caliper of a tree based at breast height. And in this case, I actually had my surveyor measure the stump there. If anybody were to walk on the site, any stumps with an orange dots were the ones that my surveyor shot. I had him do a spot of orange paint, so we were sure we got them all.
And Sue, I see the proposed erosion control.
Mhm.
Could you, or are you proposing a wattle here as well, or a different
Yes,
set of
yes.
erosion controls?
So when I was out there, it looked like the, typical leaf litter is still remaining. So it doesn't look like any soil was really disturbed. It's more the impact on the surface vegetation with the removal of the trees, and there's very little, scrub brush below it. I remember when we did testing out there that there was some understory, but not significant, not as brushy and overgrown in the buffer zone areas as it was on the other side. On this side, I remember all the overgrown, heavy duty, bittersweet, and I think honeysuckle was mixed in up along the wall, but not in the buffer zone itself. I did not walk this lower portion of the wall, so I don't know what was down in here.
Are multiple lots being proposed for this site?
This site, we've done some testing. We had 2 passing perks and a failing perk. At this point in time, Mr. Gallagher does not own this lot, so nothing is proposed unless we get enough testing for a septic system.
So right now, you have enough for one house? Not even one house.
It's tight. It's going to be to develop this as a lot. It is very challenging because the soils are tough, high groundwater, slow perks means a big elevated septic system, and to fit that in without getting into the 50-foot no disturb zone, it's a challenging lot to get it to fit. And we would need to do more testing so that we could try to fit a septic system in.
So I guess my question is, why, if we didn't have viable tests, that the tree cutters even went in?
Yeah, and if you didn't own the property, how did this all?
So we've lost significant vegetation on potentially a lot that potentially may not be suitable for a structure.
We put the cart before the horse here.
So we'd look at full remediation then.
Well, Sarah,
Well, that's premature. I mean, we're going back.
Exactly. So, and I agree.
Sarah,
But I mean, to
I want
answer
to be clear
the other
though,
gentleman's
on the
question-
lot to the east,
I'm sorry.
full remediation is still on the table too. It's just that we've sort of held that in abeyance, presuming that we will get an application
Right.
in consideration.
So I think this has been informative. I think here again, we'll just circle back on the enforcement order and what we're looking at. So Sue, what you have submitted to us is your wetlands flags that have not been verified and your trees and your erosion control. Anything else that's submitted?
No, and I'll be getting hard copies of these to Amy in the morning. I added colors just so it would read easier in the meeting, and I will get her copies in the morning.
So to date, we would look at, as of right now, there's no erosion control on site, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so commissioners, you're basically at the junction of what we would like to have done next. I would like to see erosion control installed. Typically, we say within 72 hours. Is there anything else that you would ask Mr. Gallagher to do at the present time to stabilize the site? There are wood chips, or there were wood chips on Foss Place that I think should be cleaned up so that they don't flush down the road.
I've got some.
Amy, what do you need for us to do outside of those items that we've mentioned?
I'm just looking at a picture here real quick. The only other thing I would say is, I think Sue characterized it correctly. There's not a lot of bare earth out there, because sometimes you can just keep the wood chips there to spread around to cover them. But that would be a possible consideration too. So, but I think with this discussion and your direction, I can just write a letter continuing on with the enforcement order, about getting the erosion controls up and cleaning up the wood chips. And
Amy, I'd
would
like
be
to make sure that letter makes it clear that this is just the first step, right? That-
right, exactly. So, I was, do you want a notice of intent filed for this work and maybe to throw the demolition in with it? I think that's probably the next step is get a remediation plan.
Well, a remediation plan prior to a notice, right?
I would
Yeah.
just like to point out one quick thing is right now those wood chips are outside the 100-foot buffer, as well as much of the demolition would be outside the 100-foot buffer.
Are you, okay, so I think you should go back to the other plan if that's what you're
And
discussing.
that's what I'm going to.
Right.
So in this case, the vast majority of the area and structures to be demolished are outside of the 100-foot buffer, which is here and here.
But all of your access comes through the 100-foot buffer and some of it through the 50-foot buffer.
And that's already a paved driveway and it's actively being used by the house right on this lot. So the day I went out, there were cars parked all the way up to here for that other house, the house in front.
They're having some work done inside.
So the only thing for demolition that would be in the 100-foot buffer would be the studio.
And all the tree clearing that took place.
I'm gonna be struggling with this. I don't know how you remediate 75-year-old trees. It's my personal opinion.
Okay, so, and that's not up for us, it's up for the applicant to submit that back to us.
Oh, I
So,
wanted to make I wanted to show the applicant heard that.
Yep, for sure, and I think we all appreciate that. So looking at going forward for the next step, we have to have action steps for them. So today now is Tuesday. We would have to have the erosion controls. Today's the 7th. In by really 2-3 days at the most. If not, they incur fines if that's not done. So I believe
How does inclement weather impact that? We'd make more of a mess given it's going to be torrential rain on Thursday.
well, they can get
And get
handled.
them in tomorrow.
You can use,
I don't understand the problem here. That's the justification for putting them in.
right.
No, I don't think that we can get them. You're going to tell me what to do tonight. And then we're going to go in there tomorrow to do this. Is that what the suggestion is?
That
Well,
would be my
that's what-
suggestion if inclement weather is coming on Thursday. I mean, we're talking about wattles. We're not talking about anything particularly difficult to install here.
Right, you can use hay bales. So if you didn't want them to trench in siltation fencing, that's why we went with wattles. You can always opt to do hay bales, which can be, the oak stakes can be driven into frozen ground.
Okay.
So Amy, of note, they can choose to use hay bales secured or wattles secured.
And I'm going to call them straw bales.
Thank you.
So you would like to see those in by Friday?
Yep.
And what do you want for a filing?
So remember, you're taking these on individually. It doesn't have to be you don't have to have both lots created equal. So you can speak in reference to Foss and then separately in issue to the parcel that Mr. Gallagher does not own. Yeah.
Amy, my 2 cents here is I'm not particularly interested in wasting our time by looking at something a filing specific to the trees, only to see a filing then come back on top of that actually puts the project forward. So, Sarah, if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask the applicants how long it would take them to put a filing together to address the work that they plan to do in the buffer zones, so that we can consider that in our timing of moving this forward.
So correct me if I'm wrong. The only work on Foss in the buffer zone is grading the rear side of the septic once it's installed.
And the
Correct.
demolition of that structure, and
The-
that presumes that the wetland flags are correct, which.
Right, that I think is very important, that the flags have not been verified. And we believe there's a connection on the other side as well. So that's very important. Step one, that the flags be verified.
Okay, when can we have you come out to verify the flags? Well, when would you like to come out?
We would set up a site walk to do that.
Okay. Could we
Well-
establish a time for that to occur?
Yeah. And
We
Sue,
need
you have-
we need unfrozen ground.
right, and you have to have soil logs.
So do we have soil logs?
No, Bill said he did not do the DEP forms at the time.
So what does that mean?
So I don't have, he does not have soil logs. He did them as he went along, but he did not log them in.
So we would have to wait until you have unfrozen ground.
It could be next week. The way the weather's going.
Okay. So we still have to keep going, guys. So can we go forward with this and give Mr. Gallagher some guidance?
Trees aren't going to grow in the next 3 weeks. I'd rather, let's get the enforcement order in place.
Yep.
Let's get the erosion controls in place. And beyond that, make sure that the record is clear that this isn't necessarily the end of the enforcement order, and then see what the weather gives us so that we can take a look at the wetland flags. I just don't understand why we would chase our tail looking at a remediation program when there's going to be a bunch of work there potentially.
I agree.
Okay, the other commissioners, how do we feel about that path?
That sounds great.
I agree.
Sue, is that understood?
Yep.
Mr. Gallagher?
Just because this is my first time, what does, so we're gonna file for for an order of conditions to work within the 100-foot buffer for grading on the septic. And I understand the trees are a separate issue or discussion. So that's what we're gonna go in and do the work on the sedimentation erosion control between now and Friday. Have Amy come out, verify that it's all in place, wait for the weather to warm up so that you can verify, or the ground to unfreeze to verify the soil conditions for the wetland flags. We will put together our work within the within the 100-foot buffer. What would you want us to put? I don't understand what a remediation plan is, and that's because I'm naive to this, but what is it that you're looking so we can get it accomplished for you?
So it may be premature, and commissioners, please correct me if I'm wrong, that you have to have your flags verified to also talk about remediation as well. So what
Okay.
we're looking to do is to make sure the site is stable
Yep.
until we can go forward. So what we're asking you to do, unfortunately, you have a very good, competent engineer that can guide you through that, and Sue can do that, about getting the erosion control established as soon as possible.
We'll get that
And
done.
Mark, here, the remediation plan, let's say you weren't going to develop these parcels. The remediation plan we would require that as part of the enforcement order if there wasn't anything else coming here to replace the lost trees and to otherwise right the harm to the resource area in the buffer zone. Given that there's a pending development plan here, it doesn't make sense, at least in my mind, to consider that when at least some of these trees might otherwise have been removed anyway.
I understand now. Okay. So just because I heard the gentleman ask earlier, each of these are single-family lots, even though they're multiple parcels. There's one house going on the Foss property and one house that would be going on the Ipswich property. It's not multiple homes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Sue, are we good?
I think we are.
And
Okay.
can I just confirm one other thing that, can I or can I not approve the demolition, the building permit for the demolition?
I would say not until the enforcement order has been lifted.
If it's outside of the buffer, I'm not
Commissioners,
talking about, not the one within the buffer, but why wouldn't we be able to
your wetlands
Well,
flags have not been verified.
Okay.
way outside? Okay.
I'd just like to point out that, let me get to the right plan, that clearly the studio is within the 100-foot buffer, but we have eyeballing probably 150 feet to where we showed the gazebo, and that was the next closest one. So if a wetlands flag moved 5 feet, it would not be impacted, impact the demolition of the other structures on the site.
Yeah, Sarah, I don't have a problem going
Yeah.
forward with the demolition.
I agree. If it was much closer, like Sue just said, if we were talking the potential for the line to cause more problems,
I mean, understanding that they're doing it at risk, if their wetland scientist completely buggered it and it is, then we get another crack at another enforcement order. But
I guess my 2 cents is that it's still within the 100-foot buffer zone, and the violation was in the buffer zone.
no, not the.
Well outside the buffer zone.
Right.
What's the
The
hundred-
this is outside the buffer.
I thought the
There's 150.
I thought the studio was that building up to that
Yeah,
one.
no, we're
Yeah.
not demolishing the studio at this point because we have to wait to get an order for that.
Okay, I was confused. Thank you for that.
Yeah, just the main building that's coming down, falling down.
Okay.
So what if the wetlands flags on the adjacent property are incorrect? Your red line would move further towards your demolition, correct?
Correct.
on
And
the-
that's why I'm saying if it was, if we are 105 feet away, 5 feet off the edge of the buffer zone line, then I'd agree that it would be prudent to wait. But in this case, we have 50 feet of play before it gets into the buffer zone. So I think those wetlands are pretty well defined out there. So I can't see it. A 5 or 10 foot variation is usually the most you see when you go out and look at them. They're pretty
Right,
well
right.
defined by the grades.
My only comment is when you put in for that demolition, you'll have to look at additional erosion controls
Correct.
and really look diligently at that. Okay,
Is there a rush to get this building down other than it's falling down?
okay, guys, we got to get going. Okay.
Okay, thank you for your time, and we will follow up on that.
Okay. It is 8:43. The 8 o'clock has been continued to a future time. We're going to now open the 8:15, which is a continued public hearing notice of intent. 265-277-287-289 Great Road and 25 Robinson, known as Mass DEP 204-0976. So this is a notice of intent. You all have been submitted, received via email, your order of conditions. Thank you, Amy, and others that worked on that. And we have a request for, where did I put it? Amy, help me with this one for a minute. There's a request for a special in the order.
To review the order, the special order condition.
A special order for the special order in regards to access. And Carl had a question on that.
Well, I just had a comment on that. I don't understand why we should change what we normally do and not provide ourselves with access whenever we need to get to the site.
Amy, can one of the commissioners please reference that statement? I can't put my hands on it at the moment.
Oops. It was, condition
Right
P,
here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I didn't know if you had it.
I was struggling through it, so if you have it right there.
Yes, PC5 usually reads, members and agents of the LCC shall have the right to enter and inspect the premises at any time and without notice to evaluate compliance with order of conditions. And the LCC may require the submittal of any data necessary for the LCC to evaluate compliance. They have asked to alter it to members and agents of the LCC shall have the right to enter and inspect the premises at any time and with reasonable notice to evaluate compliance with the order of conditions. And the LCC may require the submittal of any data necessary for the LCC to evaluate compliance. In the event of an emergency situation, members and guests of the LCC will enter the site after trying to contact individuals identified as part of condition C2. So they.
I don't understand why we need to make that step. It makes no sense to me. What's the reason and the rationale behind it?
So let's go ahead and ask the applicant that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Sean Malone, Oak Consulting Group, civil engineer for the project. This was a request of modification of your standard condition by the bank. All they're looking for is just reasonable notice when somebody's going to go onto the property. We are talking about a bank here who's going to be owning and operating the land. Security is kind of a big deal. So they just would like to know when people are going to be on the property roaming around in the back is all.
Certainly won't be our first bank in town that we've done that to.
So what's the difference about what's going on right now? I'm sure the bank has cameras in the back, and it's not changing since people roam around the back now, I'm sure. So
I don't know that they are, but it was a request that the bank made. It's not a deal breaker, but it's just they just were asking for some reasonable notice. That's all.
So
has this ever been done before? I don't remember that I've ever done it.
I don't think, with something big, I mean, Monarch Drive is another issue. They have certainly asked that we let them know ahead of time if we can, and we stop at the trailer during construction. So, their request was that don't go on without notification. And so I weaseled it to say, we'll try to give you notification, but if I can't get a hold of somebody that you have contacted and there's something I need to see, I'm still going.
So that's what I was saying. There's a way to merge these two, right? To say what you said. Instead of just showing up without notice, we give the notice and we show up. And they'll at least have, we've made the attempt to notify them or let them know, and we still just go on the site. You've covered both. We've gotten onto the site because we needed to, and we gave them notice. But reasonable notice could be what, 2 days? We're not. It's not reasonable for us if it's
no.
Well, yeah, because reasonable notice. I mean, if
That's the word.
someone tells me a tanker truck turned over in the isolated wetland, you got 15 minutes.
Right.
So it's
Okay, commissioners, what would we like to do?
I don't want to change it.
I think
I
you should.
just assume use our standard language.
So we have a very long order of conditions, which has, I think, been very well done. Does the applicant have any other questions or concerns on what has been submitted?
We do not. We appreciate Amy's efforts in putting that together, and everything looked reasonable to us.
the biggest change was actually because I'd rather it not be in the order conditions, but actually in the invasive species monitoring plan. Is Steve added the whole section at the end that goes through, as we had discussed, timing and reporting and all that, and 5 to 7 years of monitoring. So that is all now in the plan, as well as referenced in the order conditions.
Okay, awesome. Is there any other discussion on this? Anyone in the public that would like to be heard? I don't see any hands up. Okay. Commissioners, what would you like to do? Do we have a motion of support?
I move to issue an order of conditions for 265, 277, 287, 289 Great Road and 25 Robinson Road, Mass DEP file number 2040976.
Second.
Oh, do I need to amend that to close the public hearing as well, Amy?
That would probably be a good thing.
And to use the standard language, Chase.
Let's resubmit our verbal acknowledgement of this, please. So new motion that encompasses our change.
Oh, Carl, you want to do that? I want to make sure. I guess I'm not following you totally. Sorry.
No. The only thing I just wanted, your emotion was fine, except I just wanted to keep the standard language that
Right.
we had as far as
Okay.
access.
So that,
Oh,
so that's
I see. Right.
It hasn't
So-
changed yet. They just requested
Yeah.
that change, right? So it's
right. So Chase, that's your motion, and then we would need a second that it is written as we would like it.
Second.
Motion to issue the order of conditions using the standard access language has been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
myself, Chase Gerbeck, aye. Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye. Unanimous. Okay, thank you, and best of success with your construction.
Great.
Very
Well,
much.
thank you very much, all, and have a great night.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye.
Good, everyone.
Okay, we're now going to continue with we're 8:30, which is a continued public hearing notice of intent, 29 Lakeshore Drive, Mass DEP 204-0979, raise and rebuild single family home. Is there someone here to speak to this?
Yes, I believe Scott Myers is representing me tonight from Oxbow, and this is Michelle McDevitt from the owner of 29 Lakeshore Drive.
Yes, hi, I'm Scott Myers from Oxbow. Kyle Cormier couldn't be here tonight, but I'm filling in for him. And it's my understanding that the plans have been, revised plans have been submitted to reduce the area to be less than 5%, but still keep the drip line of the house, still keep the drip line trench, and some rain barrels for infiltration, and stormwater collection. And we can add a silt fence to the wattle and some additional erosion control, perhaps as described in a condition that you could craft. But I think that's it. I think you've been through this quite a bit from my understanding, so I'm here to help move it along. If you have any questions, myself or Michelle can answer.
Scott, do you have a plan that you'd like to put up?
Yeah, I do. If you I don't know if you can see that.
Yep, perfect. Commissioners, any questions?
Can you just, if you or Scott or Michelle, so the impervious area got reduced? Was it the size of the new house that got reduced? What changed? I guess real quick.
The slab area, which is that butt out, that's by the leach field, we took 2 feet off that to make sure that we were under the 5%,
Thank
which
you.
was the intent. The last meeting, something got baffled between communications. So
Thank you.
that was always the intent, to be following the regs. No need not to.
I don't have anything here, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have anything further.
Okay.
So Scott, we would close this for 29 Lakeshore Drive. And okay, let's go ahead. And what would the commissioners like to do?
I will move that we close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for 29 Lakeshore Drive, Mass DEP file number 204-0979.
Do we
Second,
have a second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
myself, Chase Gerbeck, aye. Sarah.
Sarah Seward, aye. Unanimous. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Michelle. Good luck.
And hang on, don't go anywhere. Just
Thank
just
you.
so you know, Scott has volunteered to do a vernal pool talk in March sometime. So we can get some public education out there.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yep, we'll see you then. Hopefully everybody can be there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so commissioners, we're going to jump back to the front page of the agenda. We left off, last discussion item was the forest cutting plans. Now we're going to talk about chapter 91, shoreland permanent issues, including docks, beaches, nourishment. Amy circulated to us just some questions that we can start to talk about with, or put forward through Amy, is the vehicle to submit any questions. Amy, do you want to talk? Any comments on this? I know we have asked commissioners that if there's questions that we'd like to ask going forward, that we submit them as just fact finding. And then
Yeah.
we would have to have a published hearing if DEP is coming in. Amy, do you want to give a little bit of the backstory on that?
Yeah, so they said they are more than happy to come in by Zoom. But that they prefer to know if there's any specific questions, get them ahead of time. So I just kind of gave you something to react to. And then I also talked to DEP Wetlands, and Mia McDonald said that she'd be willing to come in at the same time also, if that would be of interest. The Chapter 91 folks said they usually don't come to an open meeting, but I confirmed that if we have a quorum, it's going to have to be posted. It's going to be an open meeting. So I don't know what your feeling is doing this sort of off cycle. If we can get enough people to make it worthwhile, or how you want to approach that piece of it. I don't think at this point it would be widely open to the public. We can keep that for another time, but I think this would probably be best, if the public, wants to come in, fine, but I wouldn't advertise it as a public presentation.
And to be clear, we wouldn't be taking public comments.
Right. It would be a meeting so they can listen, but there'd be no public comment.
Yep. Okay.
If you
I
didn't.
think, I think it's the step one for all of us to just start to be educated to what their perspective is, and perhaps we can see what other communities are doing as well.
Yeah, it's a little flip. Chapter 91 basically said they would host the Zoom. But I'm assuming and hoping there would be a quorum, so I'd have to post it anyway.
Okay. And then, so going forward, if what I'm hearing is that we can submit questions ahead of time, and then if it is a posted hearing, if other people have questions, we can catalog them and send them back to DEP if they're not going to interact with us in an open meeting.
Yeah, I mean, and that can also be a call made at the time too. If one person shows up and has one question.
Okay.
That's one thing, but, and I'm also not clear because as of March 31st, I don't think you can have a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, they're still going back and forth from what I heard. It's still.
Yeah, so,
one of them approved, like the Senate approved it and the House didn't, or vice versa, something like that.
oh, good. Well, I haven't even heard that much.
I don't know which way it was, but it was.
Right. Well, that's what they did the last time. It was also close.
Well, if they're only willing to come in by Zoom, then I guess we should do something sooner versus later.
Before March 31st.
So we're meeting on March 7th. Do we know what the meeting is after March 7th?
It would be the 21st. So I don't know if you want to do this, try to get her to agree to do this on cycle or do it off cycle, like March 14th or 28th.
For just like an hour meeting.
Or do it early before the 7th or 20th. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think this would take too long.
I'd rather do it earlier on a meeting that we already have posted.
I'm with you, Sarah. So you're saying like started at 6:30 and dedicate an hour to the Chapter 91. Right.
Yeah.
I think that would work a little bit better for me, but
and it would probably be two different Zoom meetings because they're going to host one, so that makes a nice break too.
Okay.
That works for me.
All right, maybe get their feedback and see what their timing looks like on that. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I would ask that if anyone does start to have questions on that, if you can submit them to Amy, that would be very helpful. Okay, next is the wetland fee review. RDAs and waivers. We want to come back to that some other time?
Entirely up to you guys.
Okay, let's
I
keep
mean, you and
moving.
Brian are working on that, right? That's kind of a hands off for us.
Well, no, and we basically already did. I think, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the kind of main issues is going to be RDAs and waivers. And
Yep.
can you ask for a waiver when you're doing an RDA? And which is also true of the next bullet point there. And actually, I've got two examples for you. Someone came in and said they want to do a fence. And within the 50-foot area, but in a lawn. Now, by the minor project policy we have, I could approve that administratively. So I don't know if that was worth revisiting. And an example of another one that came in is someone wants to demolish a shed in the 50-foot no disturb area. The shed's already there. Would that normally could be an RDA, they'd have to ask for a waiver. So otherwise they're gonna have to do a notice of intent.
I think for me, I just look for consistency.
Right. So it either means being particularly hard-nosed about some things like moving a shed and making them do a notice of intent if they're in the no disturb area, or having some give. That particular project, they're gonna have to do a notice of intent for other reasons, but it was just an example of something coming up.
Okay, do we need to decide that tonight? Do you want to ask for?
No, I would say mull it over.
Okay,
And
let's do that,
especially-
and then,
especially the fence issue, because I need to give those guys some, I basically told them you need a file.
yeah, I think fences, because fences can be all the way down to the bottom where there's no wildlife habitat coming through, or you can have people that have gaps through them. So if we can, let's just move those two to another one. Wellington parcel acceptance.
Oh, and I'm sorry, just to back up on the fees, also allegedly DEP is looking to revise their fees.
Okay,
Probably, hopefully by the fall. And since some of our fees are based relative to theirs, it might be worth just waiting to see what, if anything, DEP does. If they move along.
okay. Wellington parcel acceptance. That was going to get reviewed by town council.
Yeah, which it is done. Steve Marsh is going to put up some bounds. He and I went through. There's some areas where bounds don't make any sense, but especially along where the houses and the huge basins are, he will be putting bounds in. The bounds are sitting out there and he's waiting for the surveyor to get out there to install them. So he's in process. So I believe it is appropriate for you guys to move to accept it based on the final approval of town council.
Is there someone that would like to make a motion to that effect?
Sure. I guess I'll make a motion that we approve the Wellington parcel acceptance pending town council review and approval.
Yep.
I'll second that.
Yep.
The motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
myself, Chase Gerbeck, aye. Sarah,
Sarah Seward, aye. Carries, thank you. That'll be nice. Next is Cobb's Conservation Restriction, Littleton Water Department. Signatures, you have them? Chase,
I think everybody knows where this one is.
demerits.
That's all that was.
Enforcement orders?
I completely forgot. Yeah, right. Oh, shit. Sorry.
All right,
It's sitting here. Corey hasn't bugged me lately, so.
all right. Chase, can you do that this week?
Yep. Yeah. I'll fix
All right,
that.
MACC annual meetings. I thought their outline was really well presented. You can kind of pick and choose what you'd want to do if there's segments. If anyone's interested in that, please make sure that you tell Amy soon.
Yeah,
Tomorrow.
and unfortunately, I asked her, like, because there's so many different options you can do, you know, option A, option B, pick and choose, go to everything. I asked her if you guys can all, whoever wants to do it can register themselves, but bill me. She said, no, So if you wanted to do it, you'd have to register, pay yourself, and then I will reimburse you.
Yep. Okay.
So unfortunately.
Okay.
They have some good stuff in there.
Yep. Mountain bike use,
This may,
motorized or unmotorized?
no, this is, Parks and Rec, is gonna have a summer mountain bike thing, and they're asking about my mountain bike use on town lands, and I think I talked them into Proudy. So if it comes back, they didn't come back to me, so I don't know the details. It would include obviously mountain biking as well as getting the kids to learn about the ethics, if you will, or whatever, of mountain biking, and probably do some trail work. I was going back and forth, and they need the details.
Yeah, I think also we just have to make sure that they take into effect is the weather. So if they get a lot of rain, there may be some trails that are not appropriate for erosion. And then, as always, have to be reminded it's passive recreation, that there are not e-bikes. So I know that's a little bit of a question for some trails right now.
Yeah. So I don't have any more detail on that, so that may come back up.
Are there certain Concom lands where bikes are not allowed?
Right now, no. I know over at Long Lake, there's been some issues just with basically rutting, and Oak Hill, there's been some bikers who are kind of cutting their own trails. I mostly told them the worst thing I want is for some property to become on one of the state lists of mountain biking trails, which is why I was sort of saying, let's do this over Proudy. Then
Right, because signage is going to be really important, and that they would have to really have some really good temporary signage to keep the trails and the kids on path.
Yeah, I sort of imagine maybe depending on how they structure this, if they go ahead and do this, it might be basically a land use permit to really nail it.
Because I think there's going to have to be releases as well, liability releases.
Which I assume they do anyway, but.
Okay. Okay, I think that is the last one on the agenda. Next meeting, February 21. I don't think I will be meeting then, but then after that is March 7th. And I think it's raining outside. I think I hear it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
She just came inside. It's like a hail. It's trying to get the snow.
Oh, okay. It's 9:07. Do we have a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make a
Move to
motion
adjourn
to
the
close
meeting of
the
February
meeting.
7th, 2023.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Kyle,
Kyle Maxfield, aye.
Brian,
Brian Crowley, aye.
Michael,
Michael Livingston, aye.
Carl,
Carl Melberg, aye.
myself, Chase Gerbeck, aye. Sarah.
Or Seward, aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Good night.
Stay warm.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Good night.